All right, everyone, let's get started on this first one, this ovenbird silhouette I shot this morning. It's kind of fun to be doing one of these when I just shot it. All right, I'm going to crop in just a little bit closer, not much. I do want to try and get rid of this light spot on the right, but I really like the texture that's happening over there. So, and I don't want to get too close to the bottom. Like that feels a little better. I just like a little bit more space down there. And I'll probably end up burning that. Man, I I feel like I'm missing those pines up there. I could go off proportion, but there we go. I like that. That works, and that gets rid of that little bit down there. All right, so it was early morning, and it was a little bit more kind of like cool tone. So I'm just going to lean into that. So watch, we're going to go darker with everything, exposure darker, and then we're just going to get that nice dusky vibe to the image, just cooling that white balance off a little bit. All right. So the main thing I like to do with these types of silhouettes is make the brightest spot in the image right around the bird. Okay. And so it's pretty easy. Usually you just throw a radial around that area, invert it, and then we can just take down the highlights everywhere else, which is cool. It brought a little bit more texture. We can even just darken the exposure a little bit more and kind of cool it off even a little bit more. Maybe not. Yeah, I probably went a little too far. We don't want it to be too jarring, so we can kind of expand that a little bit so some of this area gets a little bit lighter. There we go. Because if it's too much of a jarring thing, like if it was really dark right here in the lights and then all of a sudden light right there, it just doesn't. I don't know. It looks edited to me. And then I'm just gonna punch up the lights on the tone curve to really just get that kind of really popping right there. All right, that looks pretty good. Let's go into Photoshop on this one. We're going to just do a few things to clean up this area, mainly just that branch right there. My goal is to just make sure this bird stands out, and I want to go with that nice, cool tone with it. Why are we not going into Photoshop? Come on here. Oh, there we go. So yeah, that's why I did the cooler white balance, right? I just want it to look like dark early morning or late evening. That's my intention with this photo. And so we'll make a new blank layer. We'll grab the clone stamp tool right there. Make sure everything's on all layers. And as always with the clone stamp, hardness of 0 on that brush. So there we go. And watch, I'm going to sample up here and kind of softly clone that away. I would go somewhere in the neighborhood of 30 to 40% opacity, and then you just do a bunch of clicks. I'm just going to use the graphics tablet here. All right, so I got rid of that first, so I can now use this area to clean up that particular spot. So I'm going to sample up here now, and then paint in there a little bit, just to sort of get rid of that. And then I'll sample over here again and paint there to sort of get rid of that. I'm fine with that branch intersection there. I'm going to actually sample from below and bring up some of this dark just a little bit, and then the other way, and we'll just kind of fade it. On the back side here, I just want to get rid of these twigs. So I'm going to switch over to the spot healing brush, make sure it's on content aware. For this one, hardness all the way up, and then make sure it's on sample all layers. So we're going to go with that small brush there. We'll just take it right out of that tail there. Oh, let's try again. There we go. That got rid of it better. And then we go right in through that. And then lastly, we'll get rid of that branch. It cut the tail, but that's fine. I'll mask it back in. No worries there. And we'll hit that just a couple more times. It left it a little odd, so I'm going to go back to the clone stamp tool. We'll sample in there lightly and then paint that away to just sort of smooth it out. And there we go. That should be good. Add a layer mask, so we're just clicking that button right there. We're going to leave it white. We're going to grab the paintbrush tool, make sure we're painting with black. And this time I'm going to go with a hardness of 80%, and we're just going to go right along that line. The reason I don't do 100% right here is, I don't know, I always find like the 100% brush was always sort of too sharp, if that makes sense. So then again, I'm just going to kind of paint it back. I'm switching back and forth here. So I'm going to go back to this, the pixel part of the layer by clicking right there. And then we'll use the stamp tool here and just kind of clone that over a little bit more. Back to the layer mask, and then we'll just make sure we paint with white on the outside and then black on the inside to get that edge really good. All right, that's looking good there. I don't know if there's anything else I need. Maybe I can darken those spots a little bit. So let's do curves adjustment layer. We'll just take down those spots. We're going to invert that mask so it turns from white to black and hides the effect everywhere. And we're going to stay with that paintbrush. This time we're going with a big soft brush, and we're going to paint with white. So we'll press X on the keyboard to get our foreground color to white. And then I'll just softly paint some of that in there. Maybe a little in there, a little in there. And that's looking pretty good. One more hit on that. All right, that's it. We're going to save that one. There we go. We got a nice moody silhouette of an ovenbird in the forest. All I had to do was find that opening. I wish he would have stayed there so I could have played with more openings, but as you saw in the shoot, as I started walking around and looking for other areas, he decided that was enough for that spot. So if we look at our before and after, we should have quite a difference here in the look of that shot. And there you go. But yeah, I basically see this in my mind when I'm shooting it, you know. I know that I can darken everything down, cool off the white balance, and just make it look nice and dramatic and really make him stand up. But I mean, he stands out there. You can see him, but look how much he stands out there. Way more. And we just have that fun texture of the pines and the branches and everything like that. All right, so that's shot number 1. On to the next one. All right, guys, the Prothonotary. You know, I really want these verticals to be straight. So let's see. If I drag the straighten tool on this one, yeah, it looks good. I think it's pretty straight on both of them. Yeah, there we go. I'm going to clip out that bottom branch right there because I just don't need both. And then up at the top here, I don't know if I want all of that or if I want to leave it just kind of right there. So I like some of these spots of green and I like a little bit of that texture, but that extra branch up there was kind of just a little weird to me. And I don't love this branch right here. So the goal is let's make this bird nice and bright. I don't know if I want to go darker or lighter with these trees on the side. So I'm going to probably try both ways. And then I'm probably just going to fade out that branch just because it's kind of, I don't know. These are really fun up here. This one's just by itself. If there was more cool patterns in it, I think I'd like it. I mean, I guess I could darken it and show more of them. But I still don't know that I like it pointing down there. I kind of like this whole middle section just being open, clean white. So I think that's what I'll do. And then I'll just leave that branch with these branches up in there. I did, however, like going a little bit darker with the whole thing like that. So I think that's where I'm going to go. And then we'll just brighten that bird back up. So we'll have everything else be a little bit more muted, nice and bright white here. And then that bird's just going to pop out nice, bright and yellow. All right, so let's see if we can make that happen. So I'm going to actually darken the shadows a little bit more and then drop the blacks a little bit. So there we have a nice dark anchoring of these trees on each side. Plus this got better texture right in there. This is going to be really easy now, watch, because I don't mind getting more brightness on that log that he's perched on. So a big radial right in there. We're just going to lift that exposure right back up just like that. There we go. Now we got our nice bright bird. What I don't want to do is brighten just the bird because then it would look weird that he was like this tree is so dark with this crazy bright bird on it. But at this point, I think now we're within reason. Let's lighten the shadows just a little bit more and then drop the blacks for contrast. At this point, I think we can select just the bird and brighten him just a little bit more than everything else. And I'm going to do that with an object select because I think subject select is going to grab that whole perch and I don't want it to do that. So object select, there we go. Gets us just that bird. Let's brighten that bad boy up, get him nice and bright there. We'll lift those shadows up, show the wings, drop the blacks a little. And then let's zoom out and look at the difference with that. So we go from that to that. I hate when it puts those stupid dots on it. Before, after. See that? Just get that little pop there. All right. So that, I think, is it for the Lightroom edit. So we went from there to there. Look how much more it zeroes you in on that bird. I do like the darker, surrounding edges. And then the bird being brighter. So the last thing I want to do is just kind of clean that stuff up, and that'll just be super easy to do in Photoshop. We'll just clone those branches out, and then I think we'll call it a day. So into Photoshop we go. Let's make that new blank layer, clicking right down there in the layers palette. Then we're going to grab our clone stamp tool. Make sure we're on all layers up there. And you can 100% opacity this, no problem. Just any of these branches that are kind of showing, you just sample next to them. And in fact, it might be even easier. Just grab the paintbrush, sample right here, paint with white. And you can just paint the whole thing, Like, just make sure you have a nice bright white sampled. And you're not sampling like a gray or something, And then just hit all these spots. like that. Go a little bit smaller when you get near the edges, so that way you're not making that tree trunk softer than it should be. And there we go. Nice white space in there. Super clean. A little bit of branches down here I'm seeing as well. So let's grab those and get those out of there. Just that sort of ghosted. Oops, I went over that branch accidentally, so I'll undo that and paint again. And there we go. All right. I mean, I'm zoomed in way too far. We're probably never going to see it in the end, but let's see if we can punch that catch light up. Curves adjustment layer. We'll lighten it up. We're going to invert that. Grab our paintbrush, which we already have. Much smaller brush. Painting with white. And then we're just going to follow that arch to just paint that in. I mean, maybe. You can see a little bit of the catch light there, you know. And there we go, guys. That's a cool image. I like this a lot. So before, after, look at that. Barely a change. If we do, however, look at our total before and after from Lightroom to here, we should see a pretty good change with that. So let's get that saved. We'll go back into Lightroom and reset the original and look at our before and after so we can see what we ended up changing there. And we're basically going to do the same thing on the next shot. Look at that. Stands out so much more there. I like the tonality of how this got darker and a little bit more bold because it's got such a wonderful framing element to it. There we go. That's that image. Let's get that next one. Do the same thing. All right, here we go. So with this one, my composition isn't as good because I don't have as much on that log or that tree trunk over there. So start out, let's straighten this thing. And let's make things a little bit more symmetrical. Nice and easy, right? There you go. Make it the same amount on each side. I think that's important when doing something like this. That bird is almost in the middle. I can probably even go a little bit more this way just to kind of cheat him closer to the middle. He's not perfectly spaced in the middle. You can see, like, if he was, he'd be right in there. And you can see he's off that center line as well. But close enough that it's got that feeling of being nice and centered. And then I have out of focus left and right tree trunks sort of flanking the scene. With this one, I think I'm actually going to go a little bit lighter with everything except for maybe these trees, although maybe they'll look good lighter as well. So maybe we go in a different direction on this one. So let's go lighter there. We'll lift up those shadows. Whoa. Drop the blacks to get some contrast back in. Maybe not so much on those shadows. Yeah, there we go. See, I was thinking I'd go the same direction, but I don't know. Like, what happens if we go dark again? It does look better when it's dark, though. Yeah. I like everything else better when it's darker, except for the warbler, you know? So here we go. I'm going to lift the highlights. I'm going to leave the exposure down, lift the highlights a little bit more just to make it nice and a little bit more clean white in that background. I'm actually going to drop these shadows down, get those trees darker, and then we'll do just like we did before. Big oval radial gradient to sort of lighten that tree. And I went so tall with it, so it's going to be gradual. So watch, as I lighten the bird up and the tree trunk, see how it's sort of just like a nice soft fall off to the bottom. And so it looks more natural. And it's okay to leave it darker down there and let it get brighter up top there. And then we'll do that same object select on the bird and then see if we can punch up that beautiful yellow Prothonotary just a little bit more. We'll get our object select going there. Exposure comes up just a little bit. There's that bright shining light. And then we'll just clean up those white backgrounds in Photoshop nice and easy. So yeah, it does look better when that is darker. It kind of just zeroes you in on the bird. So I think that is the right call there. All right, this one, I'm going to stick with that brush method. So we're going to click here, make our new blank layer, grab our paintbrush. I'm just going to leave it as pure white right there. Instead of sampling out there, I'm just going to leave it as white. And then we'll just start painting it in here. That way we don't have to worry about sampling anything. You can just paint wherever you see anything that's, you know, something you don't like, basically. You just paint it away. But again, I feel like this is sticking with the original intent of the photo. We're not dramatically changing anything. It's not like if you see it before and after, you're like, oh my gosh, it doesn't even look remotely like it. So smaller brush there. We'll just get rid of that weird hangy thing right there. And then I guess let's zoom in and do the same thing as we did before with that curves adjustment layer and get that catch light going. So we'll lift that up, Command or Control I to invert it, and then just paint that in there. And there we go. Nice final image. There is also on this one, I got to say, there's a little bit of green showing on the bird there. So I'm going to go curves adjustment layer. We're going to go to the green channel, put a point right in the midtones there, and just drop it down like a point or two. Then we're going to invert it, and then watch, just gently, not gently, but give it 100%. Paint it on the wings and like those yellow areas. I don't want to do it there on the wing. See how it makes the wing like magenta if I do? So just basically under here and maybe a little up top there. But I think that just cleans the color up just a little bit. All right, let's get that one saved. That was fun and easy. Oh, you know what? There's one little, look at that. You guys see, it's hard to see, but there's a little bit of just something showing there. So I'll paint that in and save one more time. All right, that's it for that one. On to the next one. Oh yeah, this one's got some potential. Okay, let's crop that tree trunk off the left. I don't think it's adding anything for me, and I also like the bird to be a little bit more offset. So there we go. That works for me. All right, white balance is too cool. Let's warm it up. We had some nice warm sun coming in there. That's looking pretty good. I'm gonna punch. I was going to say punch the highlights up, but what? It's going to overexpose back there a little bit more. So actually what I'm going to do is the other way. I'm going to darken it a little bit, drop the highlights. I'm editing for the entire background at this point. We're going to go just a little bit warmer, slightly less magenta, just a point or two. And then we'll just go ahead and select our bird. Subject select should get it. Let's see. Yeah, mostly. But it got a bunch of other stuff. So I'm going to undo that. And we'll go with the good old object select here, because it works a lot better. It keeps it right on that bird, and you basically just paint in the bird there. I don't really need his feet. I don't care about them being adjusted. And, well, it grabbed them anyway, but look at that, much better. So let's get that exposure brighter. A little too bright there. Let's lift up the shadows. There we go. And then drop those blacks a little bit. There, now he's fitting in the scene. Yeah, nice. Tiny bit warmer, point or two magenta. I think we're good on this one. I want to get a little bit more up in that corner. So let's create a new, right there, radial. Just drop it in right there. Drop the exposure, warm it up a little bit. I think that's kind of doing it. And I got to say, I don't love that white line up there. So let's crop in just a little bit off of that. See if we can kind of get rid of that corner. You know what? We're going to have to fill it. I love these leaves. I don't want to crop them out. So we'll just paint that black in Photoshop. All right, let's go into Photoshop. Yeah, I love the soft rim light on this one. Really nice. Okay, new blank layer. I think I'm just going to paint it again. Stick with the paintbrush. We're just going to sample. I'm going to sample the darker gray right there and then just start painting that in. Lower opacity across the top. Listen, it doesn't need to be perfectly matched to like the, like I don't need to do that and then just make it flat up there. You know, you can, but I don't think that's necessary. I just wanted it to be darker so it wasn't like this big sort of bold whiteness up there. And then same thing on this edge. I'll sample that and then just kind of take that top edge down just a little bit. All right, there we go. That's good. This branch is kind of annoying me, as is that one. This one I don't mind. I'm weirdly picky that way, so I'm going to switch over to the spot healing brush, make sure it's on sample all layers and content aware. Watch, I'm going to actually go over the tree trunk like that, and then see how it helps to create that edge again. I'll hit it one more time. It didn't do perfect, so we'll switch back to the clone stamp tool. Make sure your clone source is on with show overlay, because we do need that to line it up. So watch, you sample there, and see how I can, before I click, I can move my cursor to get it to line up perfectly. And so I'll click there once, and let's do this with like a 30% opacity, once, twice, and then we'll sample over here and come in with the brighter side of things, and once, twice. There, we just sort of smooth that out. Same thing there, once, sample on this side, once, sample over here, nice and light. And then I always uncheck that show overlay, because I personally don't like cloning with it on all the time. And let's see, we'll go back to our spot healing brush right there, and let's see if that helps fix this one. It did a great job there. Okay, let's just punch up the catch light on this bird. So we'll go there. Actually, that looks kind of nice overall, doesn't it? I kind of like the whole thing with that lighter feeling. Yeah, I'm just going to stay there, but I'll paint with some low opacity. Let's go 20% opacity black right in here. Once, twice, a little bit in there. I'm just going to keep hitting it to just sort of take those light spots back down a little bit, just so they have a little bit more presence, a little bit more color in them. So there we go. Yeah, it turns out I like this whole thing lighter. I am going to drop the black point just a couple right there to maintain some contrast. And then we're going to go ahead and do another curve to punch up that catch light. So we'll go way up there. We're going to invert that one. So Command I or Control I on Windows. And then we'll zoom in right here. Make sure we grab that paintbrush. Nice soft brush. We can get our opacity back up at 100%. And we got to paint with white. And then we're just going to hit just the bright areas there. And watch, see how you just kind of lighten that up. And then when we zoom out, he's got a ton of life in his eye there. That looks really good. Yeah, it's funny. I started going darker, but I think overall this just feels better with that lighter vibe to it. The bird looks better. The background's a little bit softer, more pleasing. So there we go. We're done. Save it. It's funny. Sometimes you just don't realize it, You got to kind of head in one direction and then back to the other. Watch, I'm just going to lighten this raw file back up to where I should have left it. Although that does start to lose the exposure back there. So look how our final edit, watch, there's the raw file, there's the final edit, raw there. So it just sort of gives a little bit more detail back there, but the bird pops a little bit more, and that looks really good. And if we just compare that to our complete original, not a huge change there, just a crop, a little bit warmer, a little bit brighter, bird stands out better. It works really nicely. I like this one. A little bit busy over here, but not bad. All right, I think we have 2 more. Let's check them out. This one's straightforward. Basically what I'm trying to do is get a little bit of tone in the sky, but not dark, right? I don't want the sky like that. Oh, it blew out over there. Damn, I was hoping that would come back. That's a bummer. All right, we'll fix that in Photoshop. In any case, I don't want the sky this dark because then the bird has to be dark because I can't have the sky that dark and the bird that bright. It just doesn't make sense. But what I can do is get the sky right around there, drop the highlights. Watch this. Lift those shadows. Look, it throws all that light in there, except it lit up this tree a lot. I don't want that. I want it just on the bird. So let's do a radial. I'm going to do this because I kind of want some of that tree trunk around the bird to get lit up like that. So again, it's all in the attempt and the goal to make things feel natural. So we'll lift that up, make sure our blacks are nice and rich there. I'm going to throw another tiny radial right in on the bird's eye here and see if we can get a little bit more detail out of that. We can lift those shadows a little bit more, but then we got to drop the blacks to make, you know what? We can leave it lighter. Let's zoom in. Watch this. We can leave it lighter everywhere except for the pupil, like the center there. So I'm going to subtract with another radial, and I'll put it over here because I can't actually click in the same spot, but I want it in the center there. I'm basically just trying to follow the shape of the eye, and then I'm going to ditch some of the feather off of it. Well, somewhere in there. And then we'll expand it a little bit more. And there we go. Now we have that nice dark center of the eye, but there's just a little bit of that reflection going on from the bird there. And so I think overall that sort of helps. Let's see. Before, after. You know what? I'm actually going to expand this towards the top. So let's go a little bit more oval that way. Oops, that's the feather. We'll make it a little bit more oval and we'll rotate it. So it sort of takes up most of the top there as well. So let's see if that actually looks better. There we go. Yeah, I basically just need it a little bit lighter down there. So there we go. That looks good with that. Yeah, I think we're good. I like the amount of blue in there. I kind of like that out of focus tree branch back there. That's really fun. Composition is really good out of camera. I don't feel like I need to crop it. So let's go into Photoshop and we'll see if we can just get a little bit more of that blue tone down in there, which would be nice. All right, so new blank layer. Grab the paintbrush. Big soft brush. We'll sample right there. So Option click or Alt click for Windows people. And 20% opacity. Let's paint that in right there. Once, twice. I'm going to actually go up to 40%. Just paint it. There we go. I'll sample over here too. Paint some of that. We'll hit that one a little bit. And then Watch this. I want to hit that corner right there. I don't feel like getting a smaller brush and trying to be accurate, so check this out really quick. You just grab the magic wand and just click over here. If your tolerance is around 25, it should get most of that section. And watch, I'm going to hold shift to add to it and then click up there. There we go. Now I have that. I'm going to go back to my paintbrush. I still have that same blue sampled, and then I can just kind of paint in there. And then I'm going to deselect. So a nice simple way to just kind of grab that selection real quick and then watch. See how we've just toned those really bright areas down? And then lastly, we're just going to brighten up the bird a little bit more and its head just a tad. It's a fun peeking shot like that. So we'll do that. So that's the curve. We're going to lighten it about there. Invert that so it's not affecting anything. I'll stick with 50% opacity here. Smaller brush. We'll paint a little bit of the head, a little bit of the body, and then we'll hit the head a second time. Probably too much. Nah, that's good. We'll leave it like that. Nice and bright, stands out. The tail sticking out back there is a little weird, but it just looks like part of the tree, so who cares? I'm not going to mess with it. We're done. Save that one. Just a nice, easy peek against that background. There's actually a little bit of interest with the branches back there. I like that better than just like nothing in that background, you know? Oops, didn't mean to open that one. So let's let this one save and close, and we'll look at our total before and after. Shouldn't be anything too major, but we should have a bit of a change there, especially with how dark that bird was to begin with. So look at that, yeah. Much brighter, shows off that yellow really good. The bird naturally had some of that darkness in the head, so I leave it. I'm not going to mess with it, you know. And there's our final photo. All right, one more. There we go, folks. Save the best for last. I really like this one. I love the texture that comes from shooting through foreground. Make sure you go look at the video. If you didn't watch this carefully, look at the wide view. I'm going to make sure I show that in the shoot video. But the wide view, look how much stuff I'm shooting through, and look how it translates into the photo. It's just, I mean, I don't know. It's just something I really, really love. I don't love that this is disjointed, that one little piece there, but you can tell it's close enough to part of that, so that's fine. That second little branch I don't love right there because it doesn't have anything fun and green on the end like these, but that's fine. I'm not going to bother removing it. It's just kind of part of that branch. So I think we're pretty good here. You know, there's not much to do. In fact, let's just try lightening the shadows a little bit. Yeah, that gives us a little bit more brightness there. We'll drop the blacks for contrast. Maybe give the whole thing just a tiny bit of saturation, and then watch this, just a little pump on the tone curve. Just really get it nice and bright and vivid. Damn, I don't think there's anything to do in Photoshop. I mean, this one's great how it is. I like it. You know what? I can do the catch light. So let's edit this in Photoshop. I mean, I got to get it saved anyway as a Photoshop format because that's my workflow. So we'll go curves adjustment layer, lift up that exposure, Command I or Control I on Windows to invert it so it's not affecting anything. We grab our paintbrush. Really small. Let's go back up to 100% opacity. We're going to paint with white, and we just hit that top catch light like that. Toggle it before and after. It's too much, so watch. I'm just going to dial it down a little bit. There we go. Done. Save. Yeah, love the texture. Just a nice, light, airy look. It makes a big difference. If I had just shot this plain with no foreground and had even just the whiteness back there and this, it would look fine, but I think it does. This takes on just a whole other almost painterly look with it, and like nice how good it was shot to begin with. Like there's barely a change. Look at that. There's my final on the left, which is better. It's a little bit lighter, a little bit cleaner, but I mean not much of a difference there. And if we look at what I shot, it was aperture priority with auto ISO, and all I did was bump up my exposure compensation a little bit, and it got me right where I needed to be. And there's my final image. So let's take a look at all the final images. We got a nice variety of looks here. And that is definitely something that happens with warbler photography, you know? If you stay in an area and work with it, if we ignore the oven bird here, you know, these two very similar, obviously, but everything else, you know, kind of a totally different look. We got some really small in frame, showing off some habitat, like the nice stumps, and then some fun bokeh back there, amazing foreground bokeh there, and then just a more clean-ish portrait with a nice fun peak. So there you go. That's songbird photography. That's what I do with the warblers. Hope you guys enjoyed. Hope you learned a lot, and I'll try and get back out and do some more of this kind of stuff.